today, and we'll just jump right on in. So before we even get started, what is inflammation? Because I feel like that word gets thrown around a lot, but not everyone really understands what it even is. Like, is it just pain, or what is inflammation?
Well, there's, I think, a couple different types. There's acute inflammation, and then there's chronic inflammation. And acute inflammation isn't a bad thing. Like, when you get an injury, all the blood rushes to that injury, trying to get blood there to help it to heal. And it's usually inflamed and it's hot. That's actually a good thing. You want that when you get injured.
A lot of people, like, they'll come in, like, oh, well, I fell down last night and it's swollen. I need to come in and get it fixed right away. And it's like, actually, no, that's not a bad thing for it to be inflamed, for it to be swollen, because you need that. That's part of the healing process.
Right, exactly.
So when we're talking about heart health and inflammation, we're not talking about acute inflammation like that.
No. There's something else called chronic inflammation.
And chronic inflammation is when it's been in your body for a really long time and it's just causing a lot of other health issues.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of give you an example, like cortisol isn't really a bad thing. Like, if you're getting chased by a bear, you really want that cortisol level spiked and going, right? You want to be able to run faster than you've ever ran before in your life, right? But if you're always running from that bear and you never stop, I should back up. When you have cortisol level, it's going to actually cause your inflammation levels to rise. Again, it's good. It gets you up, gets you moving, gets you running from that bear. But when you're always stressed, then that inflammation is always there, which is part of the problem. You know, then that hormone is just, cortisol is just dumping all that down into your kidneys, and all that inflammation is there, and then that's where the problem comes from, or one of the problems come from with inflammation.
So with acute inflammation, that usually comes from an injury, a fall, or anything like that. But with chronic inflammation, where does a lot of that inflammation come from?
Well, it can come from a lot of different things. It can come from toxins. I tell people, sorry, my throat, emotional, environmental, or physical. Emotions, obviously, it's going to be stressful relationships, stressful events, things like that. Environment, it's everything that is around you, whether it's on social media. Sometimes I think people think social media is relaxing, and to some people maybe it is, but if you're getting fed a lot of negativity, it actually can cause your body to become stressed and inflamed if it's constantly going on. If you're in stressful situations, always living in that, if you're always living in fight or flight, then that's going to cause inflammation, chronic inflammation. And then, of course, physical is the other one, you know. The air we breathe has toxins. The food we eat is chemicals. You know, a lot of these things come back and they cause inflammation in our body. We live in a world where so much of it is artificial that to find actual natural food, health, things like that is really rare. And so, but a lot of the food we eat, the air we breathe, can cause inflammation. But also sleep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't even get to the other ones. Lack of sleep can cause inflammation. Stress we talked about. If you're stagnant, if you're not moving a whole lot, that's going to cause inflammation.
A ton of inflammation.
Yeah. So anyway, poor diet, things like that. So the sad thing is, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of these things can actually, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, and actually a lot of autoimmunes all have strong inflammatory components in them, and people don't realize that. Like when your insulin is high, you're going to have a lot of inflammation in your body.
Yeah.
It's why people have a heart attack and die and they never had any symptoms. There's inflammation in their body. That one's actually kind of scary because it's silent inflammation. And silent inflammation is just different than like all pain is from inflammation. Silent inflammation is one to where it's in your body and it's been brewing for a long time, and you don't notice it until it erupts, and it usually erupts in a chronic disease.
We've had that happen. We've had some people like, I don't know what's going on. This is
Mhm.
the healthiest I have ever been in my life. And one day I woke up and I was sick and I just never got better. And like, how scary is that? Because you didn't even realize that you're harboring all of that inflammation
Yeah,
inside.
a lot of it is inflammation, and eventually your body hits a tipping point to where it tips and then you're sick. But really, what's been going on is a lot of times their diet's really poor. That's really the number one thing. And you're really stressed, and because of those, because usually that brings on lack of sleep and your hormones are out of balance. But a lot of times it builds without us knowing it. That once we get to health, we look back and we can be like, oh, I was eating poor. I was really stressed. But at the time, you're like, I'm doing good. I haven't broken any bones. I don't have diabetes and things like that. So you think you're healthy. But really, if you're not fighting inflammation, they say that actually you're aging, and you're accelerating your aging process, and along with chronic disease by not fighting inflammation.
You have to fight it every day. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, even if you feel it or you don't feel it, that's the problem, is that people oftentimes they don't realize that they have all of this inflammation and they're not fighting it. And that is when you start to break down. And
Mm-hmm.
inflammation can be caused by so many different things. It's hard to pinpoint, like, oh, do I take this because it gets rid of inflammation, or do I go work on my mental health because that also contributes to inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one thing that I love about natural medicine, is that it looks at the body as a whole. It's never just one thing. We work on your diet, and we work on the toxins, and we work on your stress and on your sleep and everything. We see the body as a whole because we understand that inflammation doesn't just come from one thing. It comes from everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does. And it affects the whole body, from your brain to your heart to joints, every aspect of your body it can affect. So that's why it's really important to work on it every day. So,
And in relation to heart health specific, going back to that, I think a lot of people don't even understand this, but they think heart health, cholesterol, cholesterol, cholesterol. But when they did, and they've done several studies on it, that most people had normal cholesterol when they had heart attacks or
mm-hmm.
heart failure. Like, they're going in and they're getting their physicals done every year and they're getting their blood work done. They have normal levels of cholesterol. They are not at risk of heart disease because their cholesterol is normal, and yet they're still having heart attacks. And actually, it comes back to inflammation. They'll have high levels of inflammation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it actually causes the rhythm of the body, the heart, and the arteries to be off,
Mm-hmm.
which
When you have that
helps.
inflammation, the blood can't be pumped through the arteries and the veins quite like it needs to be, and so
Mm-hmm.
that motion is being more stagnant, which again is one of the things that causes inflammation, is stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just not walking, it's also stagnation at that little blood vessel, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not moving. And it's your organs. With neural and visceral, we talk about how if your organs are going to be healthy, they need that movement, and that's how they communicate. That's how blood is pumped through. That's how your inflammation is going to get stuck in an area if it's not being moved through.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important to have that movement in your body. And the best way to do that is obviously through walking and exercising, and that is why that's such a big deal. But people don't even realize that it's not just exercising and getting movement in
Oh, yeah.
one
Actually,
area.
I think diet is the most important thing you can do for inflammation. I think you do need to move, whether it's walking, running. I love yoga, stretching. Like, I love all those things. But really, I think the most important thing you could do for inflammation is your diet. Um, a lot of people are gluten intolerant, and it's really not all of it comes back to insulin resistance, but a lot of it does. We talked about the numbers are like 80 some percent in the United States have insulin resistance, which is really high.
Very high.
And so, but gluten causes inflammation. It does. Corn is actually the #1 inflammatory food out there. And corn is in everything from vitamin C to a lot of your seasonings and dressings and condiments. And I mean, they put it in like everything. And so, corn is really important to stay away from. You know, corn on the cob, I'm not going to argue with you about, but a lot of people don't recognize that corn syrups, corn starches, a lot of the corn that they actually use for making food is actually the corn stalks that they actually have started grinding down, and they're turning and using that in food. And what it does is it causes the gut in your lining to be sliced, which is where a lot of irritable bowel syndrome and things like that come.
Which is more inflammation.
And so, anyway, but sugar is also another really big one. It causes inflammation throughout your whole body. It's why children, like, when they eat sugar, their brains sometimes actually buzz, and it's because it's inflamed. Your whole body is inflamed, and your body doesn't know what to do with it, and it's constantly in that fight or flight. And
it especially attacks your brain. Like if you have ADD, ADHD, Alzheimer's, like the #1 thing you can do is take out sugar, and you will notice a difference. It might not cure it completely, but you will guaranteed notice a difference because of the effect it has on your brain.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of people say Alzheimer's is just type 3 diabetes. And I mean, it comes back to insulin resistance, but it comes back to the sugar that we're eating that's hidden in our foods and our breads and cereals. How many people come in and try to convince us that Honey Nut Cheerios is healthy?
It's honey, it's not sugar.
Exactly. If you don't know why Honey Nut Cheerios is not good for you, comment below and I'll tell you. But let me tell you, Honey Nut sugars is highly processed. You're not eating food, you're eating chemicals. But people do, they think they're eating healthy. And instead of health, they're actually getting sicker. And so, but that is a conversation we've had.
More than once.
Quite a few times. So anyway, dairy sometimes too. I'm not against dairy. If you're not dairy intolerant, I have no issues with raw, unpasteurized milk. I think it's great, you know.
Well, and most people with a dairy allergy, you didn't have dairy allergies before they started to pasteurize the milk.
That is true. That is true. So I'm not against dairy. I actually eat dairy. I don't drink a lot of milk, but I don't really like it. But I eat cottage cheese and yogurt, things like that. But there's, for some people, dairy causes inflammation in their body. And if that's someone, if it's you, then dairy probably isn't good for you to have.
Good for you to have, yeah.
So, but seed oils have actually become a really big deal the last couple of years. And when people ask me why, I think it's because a lot of the seed oils, like we knew like vegetable oil was bad for us, and palm oil and canola oil. Like a lot of people knew that oils weren't good for you. But now they've started putting a lot of those, like sunflower seed oil, in foods and things like that they label healthy, natural food. And people don't always think to check the ingredients.
Well, it's
and the labels.
Seeds are good for you.
Yeah, and read it. But actually, there's a lot of seed oils that are in our natural food today that's causing a lot of inflammation and people to be sick. And so seed oils is actually one I do recommend people stay away from. And just take out of your diet for a while. And once you're feeling good and healthy, then add it back in and see how your body does. You know, because everybody's different.
So now that we've told them, you know, all the depressing stuff about what to take out, what not to eat, what do you recommend that they eat?
You know, fish is really good. Your omegas are really good for inflammation. And so I do like the idea of eating fish a couple times a week. I think fish is good. Tuna fish, people ask me about that because I know there's some mercury, things like that. I buy high quality tuna, and so I guess I don't worry about it as much. But I also eat salmon and halibut, and I try to eat fish at least once or twice a week because it is good for us. And so, and it does have that omegas. There are supplement companies out there that sell omegas, but so many of them are so poor quality.
You have to be very, very careful.
You do. And so I don't really recommend any of them because of that. Even people who think their supplement company is fabulous, when they bring it in and I muscle test, I haven't ever found one that I muscle test someone on and they muscle test well for it.
Well,
So I
and
tell
you read
people,
the ingredients and you're like, oh, yes, there is fish oil in this fish oil pill, but actually it's less than 50% of this entire pill is
yeah,
fish oil. And it's
yeah,
mostly hyaluronic acid.
yeah, I
It's
know.
usually not
Yeah.
actually all
My
organic.
grandma actually used to take cod liver oil by the spoonfuls. I can't
Ugh.
imagine that. I think it would taste really gross. I haven't done it yet, so maybe one of you have. But that was the reason why. They knew it was beneficial to them. I think sometimes people forget that food is nourishment to our bodies. In a book I actually read it, I liked it. It said, "Food is not merely nourishment for the body. It's actually a powerful drug that can return you to a state of wellness." And I really like that because I do think food is our number one thing for fighting inflammation.
Absolutely.
So I recommend, I don't have an issue with protein. So I do recommend protein.
Fish and chicken and red meat. I know a lot of people are like, oh, red meat causes inflammation, and I have not found that to be true.
Yeah,
myself.
and actually there's some people who had so many issues and autoimmune things going on that when they took out everything but red meat, they got better. And so I do think everyone is kind of different, so you need to kind of gauge for yourself. But I'm not against red meat, but if you only want to eat chicken, then that's fine too. But I think that protein is really good. And I think diets rich in fruits and vegetables, especially your crucifix vegetables and your berries and your citrus fruit. And I really like berries and citrus fruit because they don't spike your insulin levels. I'm not against apples and bananas. Like, I eat apples, I eat bananas. I try to get the bananas when they're still green on the top. Once they go brown, I stick them in the freezer, and usually they're gone before then, so I don't even really worry about it. But fresh fruit, fresh vegetables are really important, but especially your green vegetables, your cabbages and spinach and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and
the blueberries,
yeah, because they're antioxidants, and so those things are always going to be really beneficial to you, and especially in helping to fight inflammation, just because they're food, and food
is medicine.
Mm-hmm. It can be, and it can be really nourishing to our bodies. Seeds are really great. Like, I love pumpkin seeds. A lot of people don't realize that pumpkin seeds, if you're having prostate issues, which your prostate's swollen, that's why you're having issues, by eating pumpkin seed, it actually takes the swelling down in your prostate. So,
and it's high in magnesium. They're
mm-hmm.
high in zinc. Like a lot of your magnesium and your zinc, like really good quality supplements, are actually derived from pumpkin seeds.
Well, I don't think people realize, like, pharmaceutical companies and other companies try to take food and they try to take out what's good in it and get it to a chemical that they can put in whatever and sell it. But when you take out those properties from food, you're losing it as a whole. Mm-hmm. And you're losing, like, people who want to eat apples, like, eat the core or eat the skin, because it has high in fiber. It helps to break down the apple. Don't eat rotten apples because all the enzymes have already gone to work and they're out of the apples. But eating really healthy food, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, like, that's good for you, mm-hmm. and it will help your body to feel better, and it does help to fight inflammation.
There's this whole thing right now where a lot of people are like, oh, you should never eat cherries or grapes because they're high in sugar. And, at the end of the day, I mean, you can't convince me that a Snickers bar and a grape are on the same level. Like, you really
Yeah,
cannot.
I know.
But
there are
other
some
than that,
diets where people come in and they're like, well, that Oreo was just the right this and that, and I won't say what it
has
is.
the right amount of carbs.
Yeah, and I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. There's no way in this world that Oreos are healthy. I'm sorry.
There just isn't. But that doesn't mean that grapes being high in sugar is bad, because
Yeah.
they have all the fiber and everything they need to break
it
themselves
down.
down.
Yeah.
An Oreo and a Snickers bar, they don't.
No,
which
it's
is
all
why
chemicals.
it's all chemicals.
Yeah.
And the life has, like, when you look at that grape, like, there's still life in that grape. When you look at a Snickers bar, like, nothing in that is alive or has been alive for a long time.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
So besides diet, what can people do to protect their body from inflammation, which is going to help protect their heart, their brain, just everything?
So another thing you can do is, I do think movement's good, and I'm not going to go into what you should do, but walking, running, yoga, I love stretching, whatever it is that you can fit into your day to get movement, it's really good for you. People who work at a desk, it's a great idea to get up once an hour, every hour, and take a couple laps around and walk for, 5 or 10 minutes to get that movement in, because so many people at home and in the office work at a desk. And so getting up and moving is really beneficial. Your lifestyle, stress is another big one. Stress, you need to figure out how to deal with it. Everybody's goes through different things, and everyone's stress is different. Like, we have some clients come in and they'll be like, oh, I'm super stressed because of X, Y, and Z. And the next person, that might not stress them out at all. But to them, it's stressful, because all it has to be is stressful to you. And so it's really important to learn grounding techniques, like walking outside barefoot in the grass for 20 to 30 minutes a day is excellent for grounding. Some people have grounding sheets. I see good results, but I have also seen that they do need more grounding than just that, but it is beneficial. Learning to breathe, breathing techniques, like I recommend you breathe in 4, you hold it for 7, then you breathe out 8. And to do that 2 or 3 times before you go to sleep at night, first thing in the morning. Those are all really good ways to just help to lower your stress. And then I tell people, when you learn breathing techniques, that when you get stressed during the day, to implement that breathing technique. I was just on vacation, and my flight from one place was delayed, I don't even know, I think an hour and a half or something, so I missed my next flight. And I was a little stressed. And so, but I started doing my breathing techniques as I was walking through the airport. I had to go get a hotel. And it calms you down. It brings oxygen to your brain. So it gets you to where you're logically thinking again. And it does make you feel really good. And nobody usually notices if you're taking a big deep breath and holding it. Like, nobody's going to think anything other than
not doing yoga in the airport.
Yeah.
It's
so I think learning to manage your stress, but I think breathing techniques is a big part of that.
Well, and managing is different than numbing as well. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
a lot of people, they get stressed and they start scrolling on social media, or they start playing video games, or they do something that distracts the mind enough to where they can't think about the stress. But that's not coping with the stress, and that's not managing the stress. That's numbing the stress, because as soon as you turn off your phone or anything else, it all comes back.
Right.
And so understanding that difference is also really, really important.
Yeah, no, very true, very true. Too many of us numb, and we don't want to face our problems. And numbing just doesn't help solve the problem. It's still there. And so they numb longer instead of just getting over whatever is stressful. Let the bear chase them so they can solve it and move on and be well. So I think sleeping is another big thing. Getting a good night's sleep at night is really important to help with inflammation, because it puts your brain in a state of relaxation. It puts your body into a state of healing, and getting that good night's sleep is really important. And there's a lot of things you can do if you're lacking in sleep. Maybe we'll do a video on it at some point, but breathing techniques before you go to sleep at night will actually help you to sleep.
Wonderful.
So remember 4, 7, and 8. So, but you know what? Fiducia actually has some great products for inflammation.
Mm-hmm. It really does. I mean, they have their deflammation, which obviously is great for inflammation, but they have their anxious list, which is so good for stress and anxiety, and it helps you to kind of come out of that stress and realize, like, okay, let's be chased by the bear. It's not really that bad. And then it helps you kind of come out of it, which is really beneficial. But even not just that, they have one for sleep, which is really great. A lot of people love that product because it's not drowsy, you know. It's not like taking a sleeping pill where you're like, oh, I'm gonna fall asleep, and then I'm asleep, and you wake up and you're super drowsy. It just helps your mind come out of that fight or flight
to where you can go to sleep.
You can get into that deep REM cycle on your own.
And the one thing I really like about Fiducia is they do offer all their products in children's formulas, and even not in children's, but with glycerin. And so they have a children's anxious list. So kids who are battling with ADHD and stress amongst themselves, because
so many kids
have stress in their life and it's hard to deal with. And so helping them to just kind of get their minds back to a state of calm and balance really helps them. And sometimes if they have a hard time sleeping at night, again, it doesn't make them drowsy. It helps them to just turn their brain off, be like, hey, life's good, go to sleep, wake up, get on with their day. And so, with kids, you know, if they have ADHD, it might be they use the children's anxious list more daily, but like the sleep, I'm like, just use it until they're sleeping good. And then you don't need it anymore until they start struggling again. And so, but it's something nice they don't have to use every day. So,
and I also love that it's made from whole food ingredients. So it's not made from a little bit of magnesium that was stripped from this natural ingredient. Like, no, you get the whole thing, so it all breaks down, and it's really nice. And it's not just anxiety that it's treating, it's everything that comes with the anxiety.
Oh yeah, so like vitamin C gets used up a lot, so they put in extra vitamin C and things like that. So it's not just your regular supplement, but it actually looks at what's going on with the body, and then it helps to support those other things.
It helps get oxygen up to the brain. And it helps with the vitamin C and the oxidative stress. And so they see the body as a whole, you know, and so they see, like, when you're anxious, this and this and this and this is all going on. So we can't just give you something to calm your mind. We have to get oxygen to your brain for lasting effects. We need to help with the vitamin C, and we need, you know, and we need these nutrients so that your body can calm down, that, you know, it has enough. And so I actually really, love them, and they are one of our sponsors, which we do.
They are one of our sponsors. You know, another thing we didn't talk about, they do have 2 formulas, one for bacteria and one for parasites, and candida. Those are actually can be causes of inflammation. People don't realize.
Well, they're a toxin in your body.
Well, and your body goes to fight them, you know, and while your body's fighting, it's going to cause inflammation, because that's what your body does. It sends that message out, blood goes to there, it's going to be inflamed.
And a lot of your silent inflammation comes from that, because you don't feel the parasites or the bacteria or the candida most of the time. But your body's constantly fighting it, and so that inflammation is constantly higher. And so everyone thinks, like, inflammation is that swollen ankle, and that is inflammation, don't get me wrong. But it can be something as simple as your body's immune system is constantly turned on because of parasites
or bacteria. And candida is another big one too, just because of so much sugar that we eat. People don't realize that we're feeding that candida, we're feeding the parasites and the bacteria. Looking at your blood under a microscope, which is one of the things I do, we'll see sometimes red blood cells that have bacteria inside the blood cell. You see this little cell and you'll see dots like jumping all around inside of it. And I'm like, oh, there's bacteria in your red blood cell that actually tells me that something you're eating is really high in sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing people don't realize is that once that's in your red blood cells, and we see parasites in there as well, but it actually can take up to half of your nutrients, and it puts off what's called mycotoxins into your body. So it's actually trying to kill the host, and which is going to cause inflammation.
Yes.
And so, but Fiducia has some great formulas for that. We really like them. We use them often
Very
in
often.
our clinic. And so,
And it
but
goes back to, once you stop fighting inflammation, you start to die. And people think, oh, like I hit my peak. We see some of the worst blood in children. Like it's
that is true.
never too early to start on the bacteria or the parasite cleanses and figuring out what you need for you, because sometimes when families come in, it's the young kids that have the most
blood.
bacteria, the most parasites, and the worst blood. And I genuinely don't know how they're not sicker.
Well,
And
I think
because it's that
people don't
silent
realize that it
inflammation.
causes autoimmune issues. Their children are starting to show early signs of food sensitivities and not being able to concentrate.
And young kids are getting acne, and
Yeah,
that really is
it
very
is,
early.
yeah, exactly. But a lot of times it comes back to what they're eating